Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 229. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the highly talented children's book and comics illustrator and founder of Kids Con New England, Emily Drouin.
Hey.
Emily,
Hi.
how are
Thanks
you
for
doing?
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know I'm trying to get you on for. I think we reached out. We're both part of also the Kids Comic Unite group,
Yeah.
and reached out. I think back in September or so, and really wanted to try to get you on the show. And we wanted to kind of balance it between you just recently had a very successful Kids Con New England, and you started doing that back in 2016 is when you first started doing the Kids Con, correct?
Yeah. Well, I kind of started off doing a mini version KidsCon at events throughout New England. Since 2013, 2015, I was doing workshops at KidsCon activity zones and teaching workshops for the kids. And also with my comics, I started attending conventions in 2013 with my kids series, sci-fi series Upless that I
Okay.
co-write with my husband and I illustrate. And I saw the need for there to be more stuff for kids to do. So I started like asking conventions, hey, how about if I do a little some kids activities and programming? And they were thrilled to have that because that was seen to be very lacking at the time in the early 2010s. So that's kind of where KidsCon New England was born. I just expanded it and created a whole convention devoted to all family-friendly comic and children's book creators. So families will know that there's like a safe space, that everything's been approved to be kid-friendly.
Also kind of got this inspiration by having your booth next to maybe an adult comic, and it was one of
Yeah.
these situations where it felt kind of weird having kids, having that all intermingled a bit.
Yeah, that was another idea. Like I was like, let's have a whole aisle devoted just for kids stuff or family friendly materials. Um, and there aren't too many conventions that want to do that. I know it's a lot of work, like tabling, and from the convention standpoint where I run shows, I know how difficult it can be to seat everyone. But that's why I felt the need for there to be a family friendly show, and there are a lot of family friendly shows, but they don't aren't as thorough at looking at who's exhibiting, and so it's
Right.
good to have like a safe space for families.
And how does that work, for instance, with Kids Con New England?
Yeah.
How is that process of that vetting process that you do for vendors?
Yeah, so we let them all know up front in the application that everything needs to be family friendly, and we also review their works. And also, before we start the show, I go around everyone in Artist Alley just to make sure things are, family friendly again, that there's no surprises.
And so do you say, like, for instance, that for those that are interested, as of this recording here, you do
Yeah,
have your table registration is open for May and next November as well, or just the
yeah,
May one?
for both our events.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
ton of fun. We do lots of creative workshops, gaming, and we have fun activities like Jedi training, magic shows, and sing along story time and costume contests. And it's a ton of fun to inspire the kids, the next generation of comic and children's book creators. Basically, it's all about promoting art education and literacy, and that's what I'm very passionate about. Ever since I was a little kid, my favorite place to go was the library, and I was always excited when my mom that it was Saturday, it was library time, and because then I could get, like, all these books for
Hmm.
free. And it fueled my love of storytelling and wanting to illustrate and write my own books. And when I was in elementary school, I was illustrating and writing my own creative stories, and my teachers really encouraged me to pursue and continue. And I'd even make like photocopies and I'd staple the books together. And and so I think that's really important to have that. Kids need to hear, to get encouragement to create. And also to there's just now everything's on the internet. You can see so many creators online now. Before it was a lot harder to meet creators. Um, and during the pandemic, I did KidsCon online.
Mm.
And so, it's still available. It was a 2-day event, we had for free, and people did videos, ahead of time, and I put them all together, and we did like a live stream. And I had my, cartoon hosts I created, and I animated them and, did the voiceover with my husband, Jeremy, and we're like, "Hey, what's up? Let's check out this next, video," and yeah, and so it was a lot of fun, just like trying to cheer people up. And that's why I love creating art and children's books, because it's a happy thing and it can also be a sad thing. There are lots of emotions in arts, but I just love to create and share my love of reading with everyone.
And so one of your first inspirations that kind of got you into that was the Disney Adventures, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Disney Adventures, I subscribed to that. It was like my first kind of comics other than the traditional comics in the Sunday paper, which is where my love of comics started, like Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts and, Family Circus, and Garfield, of course. And I saw those, volumes at the library too of those comics and I used to create comics too, inspired by that, but yeah.
Right. Now, how do you balance the fact that you're an artist, you're an illustrator, you do a
Mhm.
lot of children's books, you do a lot of, and we'll talk about that, and a lot of the kids comics. How do you how do you balance your time doing that, but also running a convention, because that takes a lot of time as well.
Yeah, definitely, as well as I'm always working on multiple projects at once. It's a lot of time management and, especially now too during the holidays, which is very good to be busy. I also have this boom of everyone. I think it's something too that seems to happen at the end of the year. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's winter, we're gonna hunker down and do creative projects."
Right.
So I had a lot of people reach out to me, some more children's books in the pipeline, and also lots of caricatures. I love drawing people in cartoony style, and so it's good. I've been doing a lot of Christmas gifts, and if anyone is looking for something too, there's still time to reach out to me and let me know. And you can check out my art on my website, emilyatplay.com.
Right. Yep. And then, yeah, Emily at play.com. And on there, people can check out your portfolio. You got your resume, your art shop. I'm really curious too to talk to you a little bit about store envy. So
Yeah.
why pick store envy out of some other options? And what would be your advice for artists who are looking to create an online store like that?
I've honestly just been using them since, like, 2013 or so, and I just kinda stuck with it. Um, I did also use various printing for, like, T-shirts and stuff, companies, but Store and Bay, yeah, it's pretty, simple, and it's free, and it's easy to set up. And,
Okay.
I also use Square too for, like, my convention stuff, and it's very popular too for my art, so I do, like, you can do invoices and all sorts of stuff, so Square is great too. But Store Envy, it works, you get email alerts, and, I people can commission, do, like, custom art, ask me to draw, and they can message me directly through Store Envy too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so you have a few projects that you've been working on, but do you want to talk to us about a couple of your newer ones, Aria's Adventures?
Yeah, that one, is one of my newer comics, and I worked with, uh, Tiffany Roberts, the author, and it's based on their family.
Hmm.
And Aria, the girl, and she has a wild imagination. They actually started doing YouTube videos
Oh,
of
cool.
Arya and on her little adventures, and so the link goes right to their website. I don't sell any of those on my store Envy, but it links to their website, as well as Buddy the Bass. And so Arya is kind of like Calvin and Hobbes in a way, that this silly, mischievous kid, about the same age, and has a bunch of stuffed animal friends, and just takes ordinary situations and blows them up, and her imagination becomes fantastic adventures, and often gets her into trouble, and her poor dad tends to get it. As you can see here, she thinks he's like the abominable snowman, and yeah.
So I'm really curious too, as we're talking about this, is that um what's the difference if somebody is like, somebody's going to the library or something, or wanting to learn more about children's books? What's that borderline between, all right, no, actually this is a kid's comic, or no, this is a children's book? What is that? What's the definition between one being a comic book, a kid's comic, as compared to a children's book?
It's, basically the format, and,
Okay.
so, for example, you'll have, speech bubbles, which in a comic book is quite common, and also, like, action words, and this is another from the book. And so, yeah, and usually they're in panels, and my particular style, I kinda did this like a crayon. So, in her imagination, they're the crayon borders. And then when it comes to real, the crayon disappears and you can see
Okay.
the reveal. Um, and I have a very kind of that kind of flow. Like I love to have more of an organic
Right.
feel of the panels. I don't not really a big fan of the firm grids, but I have done them in other various comics too. But in my particular style, I love doing a more of a flow, like doing the Z style, but more organic and whimsical flowing in. And then for a children's book, it's basically you'll have like a picture. This one's one of my recent ones, Buddy the Bass in the Gooey
Mm,
Greens line. And the author is Edwin Mark Brooks, and it's available on magicmarkbrooks.com too. And then the link's off my website. But as you can see I'll show you this one, it's more of you'll have text and then pictures around it, but there's no speech bubbles. Usually it's kind of like more
mm.
in this type of format. So they are very similar, just little variations between like it's kind of more dominant on the picture versus having a bunch of speech bubbles and yeah,
Right.
and text. Some people I'll have illustrations on one page and then the text on another page too for children's books.
So do you prefer, when it comes to that, because if you're an artist, if you're the illustrator and the writer, you're able to kind of decide how you're going to marry those words and languages with the speech bubbles, as compared to what you're showing us with your other books, is that somebody else is writing it for you. How's that conversation happen when you say, there's too many words here, I need this to shrink, or
Exactly.
yeah, how does
That's
that
what I was
work?
gonna say. That is one of the things I really don't like. I like very minimal words, so that's why I loved Arya's Adventures because it was so few words,
Right.
and I could tell the story visually, and I love to tell a story visually. Um, so it's like you can see what's going on. Yes, say what you need to say, but you can also, have fun with it and have boom and, action words. Like I really love the comic format. I have to say is my favorite
Mm,
because of the action words. And I do incorporate action words in my children's books too, but it's basically doing a Z format for
right.
comics and children's books just have one picture. So
Right.
that would be the difference between them. When I first started off doing comics, my first 2 books, I inked them all in, by hand and then scanned them and then colored digitally, and, it's great to have that too, to have that hard copy, because then I also, put them up, framed them, and I actually had them at some children's museums and libraries and stuff, so it's good to have that, the hard copy, but it's also so much easier. I like working for one at an angle, and so I have a drawing monitor. I use the Huion tablet,
Hmm.
and it's very similar to the Cintiq, um, but it's also a quarter of the cost. So that's why I love it. But I actually love the pen better than the Cintiq, and but yet Cintiq is a phenomenal product. A lot of people in the industry use it. It is the go-to. But if you're in a pinch money-wise, it's a good option.
Right.
And, it's just like I love to paint too. I do acrylic paintings. I'm a muralist as well. I love to work in a variety of mediums. I also love Prismacolor markers, and I work a lot of, traditional like, when I do commissions for people, I use mainly markers. I have done some paintings in acrylic too for people. So it's great. I love the variety of changing mediums. But digital, I'd have to say, is a lot cleaner. And it's great for printing. You get the high resolution. You don't have as much cleanup as you would traditionally. You're like, oh, I got specks here in my scan. You have to go all and clean them up. So that's why I love working digitally.
Right. And so what are some of the things as you're working digitally that you wish you knew, say, 4 years ago when you started working digitally? What are some of the shortcuts or advice that you would give people that are working in digital right now?
Yeah, I think I started, was it 8 years ago? Or
Mm,
when I first got my, drawing tablet, it was a Wacom, and look at your monitor, and you have the pen, just like the flat tablet at your desk, and draw looking up. That
yeah.
one was really hard to get that coordination. I think it made me better for doing print work. I, for one, have a graphic design degree from Keene State College, so I did go to formal school for printing, and I worked in pre-press and package design and stuff for almost 6 years, and so I have that printing background, so that is why I love working on the computer, because it just I'm very familiar with it, and I love
Mm,
working the Adobe software, and that's actually where I paint too, using Photoshop, and also doing animation too with Adobe and video editing. It's like everything. I think just, experimenting with the different varieties of the pens and brushes. There's so much out there, but I've learned too to create my own. So I also have my own set that I prefer using. So basically in Photoshop, you can edit the way brushes, sensitivities, and the slope and pressure and all sorts of things. And I create
right.
like that crayon tool too.
So talk to us a little bit about Eplis. You have 4 issues out so far, and so
Yeah.
those that are fans of it, when are they waiting for issue 5?
I know, I've been wanting to do that for so long. I've been bugging Jeremy, my co-writer, to do it, with me, and I've just been always, like you said, I'm running multiple events a year. I go to conventions too. I'm tabling at. I'm a member of the National Cartoonist Society, and I do events with them as well. It's a lot of fun. And then I'm also, like I say, do all these other odd jobs, video editing and some animation, and I'm like also do commercials for my events and some voiceovers and stuff. So definitely keeping busy. But I hope to do. I don't want it to die. I want to do another uplist soon. So yeah, we have been, writing the story, and it's just a matter of finalizing it, so hopefully soon.
And so do you how does that work for you? Do you Do you and Jeremy, do you already have like an outline out for a certain amount of issues, or is it an ongoing series, or do you have like a storyline that
Yeah, we have
you're going to do?
a story arc, and we planned it out. And one of the things I would like to do is animate it, create it
Okay.
as an animated series. My cousin and I are both musicians, but he is definitely better composer than I am. So he is amazing. He did the theme song for Efless, and it's on my website too. And I'd love to, use that and do a cartoon show in the future. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about, as well as like getting back to the kids con
Mhm.
piece. You mentioned that you have there's a vetting system that's in place to make sure that people are kind of have that age appropriate piece to it. Um, have you seen in the past almost 10 years you've been, because you mentioned this started in 2016, but you started tabling back in 2015, 2014 or so,
2013.
right?
Yeah,
2013.
2013. Yeah, and then I created KidsCon New England in 2015, but I was doing, like, KidsCon, 2014 on, like, a mini version of it within conventions.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
And do you, so I guess, so a piece of it, have you noticed in the almost 10 years that you've been doing this, have you seen a surge in kids comics right
Oh,
now?
definitely. Yeah, and we're not, just about comics, we are about children's literature in general, so, and as well as indie art. So we have illustrators on, crafters even. Our event is more focused on the indie scene. We do get some guests that are mass published. They have like Macmillan and, others. Um, that attend. And we had the investigators, John Patrick Green, at our previous show, as well as Dave Roman from Astronaut Academy and Teen Boat. And it was awesome to have them there. Um, yeah, so we're more generally like an indie, like people that create. We limit the amount of vendors, so we don't like mass produce things. We like to keep
Mm.
it more of like these are things people made, like small press and by made by hand.
Is there a
Yeah,
group that just are not geared towards that, where you would just say, sorry, this isn't your convention?
yeah, it's been hard. Like every now and then you get some weird ones like Windows, but I try to limit. If they want to be on the outside, yeah, that's fine. But we're definitely grateful for our sponsors too. Like you have Rhode Island Comic Con, they're sponsored by Cardi's mattresses every year. So, that does happen, you're welcoming anything family friendly, but to a certain degree, like it's very limited if it's outside of the children's books and
Right,
children's gaming. Like we have indie game makers there as well. And people that make like their own toys. So
right.
I know they're like, you always see Wild Bills. Yeah, we don't have Wild Bills, but we just like to try to keep it more of like an indie scene. So yeah.
Right, right. As you talk with KidsCon, there's a beautiful marriage that KidsCon would have with, like, say for instance, with the libraries, for instance.
Mhm.
How important do you push that to really get libraries involved in the KidsCon New England?
Yeah, we have a lot of librarians as well as schools that come to our events and actually purchase a bunch of books from the artists and
Mm.
authors at our events. So we've had them come back with big stacks, leaving with big stacks. And so that's great to have that. So it is a resource, and I definitely promote it a lot in all the social networks and community groups too to let them know, as well as put up posters at libraries and schools and other various places about our upcoming events because we
Mm.
are about the education part of it. So we do lots of creative workshops and we're we have writing workshops, drawing workshops. We even had a character comedy improv at our class, which is a lot of fun. So it's all about, that education. So we welcome to any libraries and things. We've had local bookstores table at our events. And as well as I myself have done workshops at libraries and at schools, teaching how to create comics and stuff. So I
Right.
have done a lot of those, and I love to do some too. There, if you have a school or a library who'd like to invite me as a guest, I'd love to come.
Where do you see yourself if somebody is looking for some advice to say, you know what, Emily, I'm looking to, start my own convention for what advice do you wish you've received back in 2016 when you started doing this as a solo thing?
Well, like anything, I think it's you learn from on the job, you know, experience. I'd recommend like how I started out tabling at conventions. And so
Mm,
it gives you a unique perspective being on that end of what you like and what you don't like about conventions for one, but also too volunteering to work at shows. That was another thing that helped me to learn how to run a convention, seeing all those different aspects and behind the scenes. So I was doing that, like again, running my kids con areas and volunteering in that and doing a variety of things, not just comic cons, but doing fairs and doing library shows and a hodgepodge of things. I've learned to adapt in the space you're provided.
right.
And so it's just you have to learn to be flexible with spaces and the more each year you'll learn more and more what works and what doesn't work. So your first time you run a show, it's definitely going to have a lot of hiccups, and then you learn from that. And
Right.
the more you do them, hopefully the better you get. But there are things that will pop up no matter how hard you plan for everything, and it's inevitable. But you just try to, from your experience each year, you get better and better and more familiar how to handle situations.
Right.
So
Now,
yeah.
and how much have you seen changed a bit through like pre-COVID conventions to now this post-COVID convention scene? What things have you been able to adjust or update or evolve into?
Yeah, we in the when we came back, we weren't able to do a New Hampshire show or a Maine show in 2020, but we did our KidsCon online. And then 2021, again, it was still the pandemic wouldn't allow us to have a show in spring, so we had our main event in 2021. So I was bummed we couldn't do that New Hampshire show. And then we finally had both our New Hampshire and fall Maine show this year. And in that, we did get that hiccup of people thinking in New Hampshire, "Oh, they must have just stopped doing the show because it had been since 2019, and now it's 2021." So, we had to I essentially it's like starting over, you have
Mm,
to, like, do all your email blasts and everything and be like, "Hey, we're here again." Not only that, what was frustrating was losing venue of the Nashua location.
mm,
At the Radisson, they got bought out to be the Sheridan, and then this new management finally, like, they were saying, "Oh, we can't book you yet because we're doing renovations and blah, blah, blah." So a couple of years later, I'm like, "Please, finally, can we have our event back? Because we loved it. It was a castle, and it worked
right.
perfect for all our rooms, space for the workshops and everything." But then they're like, "No, we don't want you back anymore. We
Oh,
wanna have it specifically we're corporate and weddings events,
right.
so we're not doing the Comic Cons," and so I was crushed by that, so I had to start from scratch trying to find a whole new venue, and having again, doing that, so I not everyone is accommodating, they won't let you do setup the night before, and it was just and I tried schools, and they're like, "Oh, you can't charge admission." It was just, like, all these things in universities, I just, it was so hard to find another space that had what we needed for our event, so I was like, "I'm gonna try and make this work the best I can," and again, we're still running into that, trying to find another venue that has those spaces, but we're at the Everett again, and we're going to change up some things again, to try create some calmer spaces because it's a big open echoey space. So those are situations you run into. It's like, you got to try to change things up and work with what you got. And I'm
Right.
like, I need to run this show. I don't want to give up. Um, it means a lot to people. We have had such positive feedback at our shows, and people say what a difference it makes to them, and inspires their kids to create, and just like, so it's really important. We have something really unique. I feel there aren't as many, kids shows like this at all in this
Right.
area. I actually, KidsCon was New England was the first Kids Comic Con in New England. So
Right.
yeah, which
Are,
was
th- are there are there more now since then?
there are a couple more, not a
Right.
whole lot, but it is a tricky thing too. And I know it can be hard for people to, um, find vendors and things for that. But I just feel like we're something special, and I want to keep it going. And if other people are doing it too, I'm very, supportive of them as well. We're As long as we're all about a positive mission.
Because you call it KidsCon New England, are you looking to expand it out into like Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, or anything like that as well?
Yeah, that was the intent. To kind of, in the future, maybe KidsCon USA, right? So I have been looking and trying to expand it to other states, and I have been on tour, contributing to the kids areas at various events like Baltimore Comic Con, which I had a lot of
Mm,
fun at the Kids Love Comics Pavilion, which I feel we should do more. Like if only other events followed like that, like just have a kids space, like they're on the same page and wanting to have that zone devoted to kids. Rhode Island Comic Con, I'd love to help them expand their kids section. That's another thing, that I feel like could use some more improvement, to help, create something bigger, like a bigger space than
right.
just laying some tables out for the kids coloring. A
So,
more immersive experience. Yeah.
and where does it come down to where you see it almost like, is there like an age range where you say, all right, this is definitely a kid's comic as compared to that? Is there a specific age range on there, or is it about art style, or is it about storyline? What would constitute a kid's comic in that sense?
Yeah. Well, you do have some people like Scotty Young that has a very fun, like cutesy style, but Adventures in Fairyland is not for little
Right,
kids, but it looks cute. So you can't just go by that cute formula, because you can have that type of humor where it can get bloody and gory. So if it has
right,
that excessive bloody, gory stuff, like even some Batman and things are really dark.
right.
Um, Generally, I find like if they are more colorful, if they have fewer text, usually, and more bubbly,
Mhm.
is usually for kids comics. Darker colors, more muted tones, definitely more for mature. Um, and I have a very vibrant style, and I for a long time was wondering if that's why publishers kept turning my stuff down. Because there was this kind of period where a lot of kid comics were very kind of muted down, but kids love color. They love pops
Right.
of color. So, but like for example, my comics generally ages 5 and up. So if they're like very visual, very few words, then that can appeal to little kids, even younger.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the places that you've joined as well, like the National Cartoonist Society and the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Yeah, as well as Kid Lit 603 in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel if you are an aspiring author, new illustrator, you want to do books, now is the best time to go online and connect with the communities out there. You can find on Facebook, on Twitter or Instagram, but I prefer using Facebook. I feel like their groups, their community groups, they have lots of children's book and comic book creators groups out there. They have ones that are regional chapters. I am part of the National Cartoon Society, and we have divisions for New England and all sorts throughout the country. And if you go on nationalcartoonist.com, you can find out more about if you're interested in joining, and all the information's on there. And the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators is very similar. We have groups too, based on the regions, scbwi.org. And if you look on there, you can find it's a great resource too if you're looking for an illustrator writer as well. Or cartoonist. You can find a variety of different styles. We list our portfolios on there, and there is a fee to join both of these groups, but you can find out more on the member information off the website. But I think it's great networking. Occasionally, we have streaming like on Zoom meetings, and hopefully more in-person events in the future. I know, go figure, the pandemic kind of threw things off, but things are picking back up, and so it's great to be on there. And yeah, you can see some of my examples there. And I've gotten jobs being on that website, as well as, again, people, Googling you. If it's important to have your own website. You can do tags on your work too, like, comic artist, or, cutesy cartoons, animals. Um, so it's definitely important to use the internet for that. It was a lot harder prior to these times of the internet being so widely available to everyone now. And the only downside, if you are an artist, I'm sure you've heard of everything going on. Well, for one, at first, there are websites too, like Fiverr, and people do, ask to do odd jobs there. Like, hey, I'm looking for an animator to do this, 5-minute thing. And you're going to have some people in like way far east, like Indonesia, and they're like, I'll do it for $5. So that's what does hurt artists. You're like, come on, I'm spending the whole day on this. Is it really fair to pay? Would you pay a doctor? Like, you go to the doctor's office, they see you for like 2 minutes and you get charged $300,
Right.
So there needs to be more respect, I think, in the artist world, because it is work. It is an actual job. It is hard, you know. And of course, now there's the AI is another thing.
Yeah.
And the AI, though, I mean, it's the early stages, and it could, it will inevitably probably get better and better, but they are using art from artists. So it's not starting off from scratch.
Right.
But then again, we are inspired by other artists, just as the AI is inspired. But it's one thing when they're taking that image and using so much of it. So artists, don't upload your art on there, because it's just feeding the system. But a lot of people had their work taken and they didn't get permission.
Right.
And the thing about copyright is, if you change it just a little bit, then it's a unique work. And I know I've had my stuff ripped off too, and I'm sure pretty much every artist at this point. You have something online, you need to be online to get noticed, but as soon as you have something online, it's out there for anyone.
Right.
It's definitely challenging, but there's still a lot of people that want something unique, and AI cannot provide that unique personality to the piece than artists
Right.
can, especially the fingers right now.
I know. I saw that.
But I'm sure that will get better in the future. But I mean, as far as when I looked, I just went through and I was like, okay, it's not good at cartooning yet. So I think we are good for as far as being cartoonists. But
Right.
knock on wood.
So you mentioned too that you're available to illustrate self-published books. So is there a reason why you pick specifically self-published works and not maybe something larger from
Well,
like say a larger company or something?
mainly because I keep reaching out to those companies and I never get accepted.
Oh, okay.
I'll keep at it. I never give up, as well as agents too. So basically, I'm just, kind of getting what I can get. Mainly, again, I meet these indie creators. I love working with indie creators too because they're a lot of times just starting out. So I'm trying to raise them up too. We're trying to help each other to get noticed, and I give advice too from my experience, and I love to help people out. There's only so much you can do. Obviously, they need to do some work too.
Right.
But, you can't do everything for 'em, but you do as much as you can. And so I love working with the indie scene because it's like I love the variety of projects and, it keeps the job interesting. I'm not just working on this one graphic novel that's going to be taking me the next 5 years. I've devoted this publisher to doing. But you're also, committed that you can't do your own personal projects if you have all these others lined up, which, can eat up into your time trying to,
Right.
do things, which, like for Eplis, for example, through Facebook groups is how I've gotten a lot of my work and through the society online websites.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, for those that are interested in learning more about your work and what you do, they can go to emilyatplay.com. And if people want to learn more about the KidsCon New England, they go to kidsconne.com. They're very excited for you to come on the show.
Oh, thanks. Oh, and I've had people ask me about what Emily at Play, like they thinking that song by Pink Floyd. It's actually based on a Warren Beatty quote. You've achieved success in your field when you don't know whether what you're doing is work or play. So
Okay.
this is me, Emily at Play, and
All
also
right.
work.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Emily.
Oh, very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And I wish you all a very happy and healthy holiday season and new year. And I would love to connect with any other fellow creators. Feel free to reach out. I'm on Facebook, Emily at Play, and my website, and also Instagram, Emily Drouin Art.
Perfect. All right. Good.
Um, yeah.
And you said, and I'm gonna edit this site. This is the coolest thing about this is the best part about this, Emily, is that I'm editing this out later so that it'll be super smooth on
Okay.
the audio podcast. So that's really cool that I can do that. So I'm gonna timestamp this because it was one of those situations where I had like two questions and they all kind of like converged at once and then I forgot, but then it messed me up for a second.
Yeah, let me
Uh,
know if I didn't quite answer the question or
oh no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, you're rock starring this. Don't worry about that. So